Punk, a genre that was first declared dead in 1977, almost right after it was born, and has been declared dead constantly ever since. But just like some kind of villain in a slasher series, it always seems to come back for another sequel. It might not be topping the charts in 2024, but around the world there are lots of great punk bands still going, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about 6 that are all fairly new. If they're new to you, I hope you enjoy. If they're not new to you, good job. I'm Michael, this is Eclecticism, and punk's not dead. Let's start where I live in London, for the newest band on this list. The Chisel formed in London in 2020, from the remnants of UK hardcore band Arms Race. Despite being only a few years into their career, they've already put out 2 albums and some EPs. They're part of a modern wave of oi punk that's growing in popularity, oi being a style of punk that came about before hardcore, as a response to the commercialization of punk and the artiness of post-punk. Oi was an attempt to take punk back to its roots, focusing on working-class topics like workers' rights, harassment from police, and unemployment. The oi scene was perceived to have lost its connection with these issues as racist groups started being associated with the style, although the best-remembered bands of the style were either anti-fascist and left-leaning, or not explicitly political. As far as the Chisel go, though, they're looking at the roots of oi in the working-class experience. If you're curious to explore some earlier oi sounds, I recommend checking out Angelic Upstart's Teenage Warning, Blitz's Voice of a Generation, and Cocksparrer's Shock Troops. These are all early classics and great albums. The Chisel are one of the bands bringing this style back, but with a more modern approach, both in their politics and their music. The music mixes hardcore with oi, leading to some of the songs being blistering barrages of riffs, while others have choruses you could imagine an entire pub singing along with. It's honestly a great band for anyone who likes less hardcore punk, but are curious to start exploring hardcore, since their sound can shift between the two, and even the more aggressive music is fairly melodic and accessible. You'll also probably like them if you've enjoyed other oi or hardcore music. Where do you start with their music? I don't really think you can go wrong with either of their albums. I've listened to the first one, Retaliation, the most, because I've had more time to, but I'm currently playing What a Fucking Nightmare quite a bit. If I had to pick, I'd say start with Retaliation, but don't stop there. Staying in the UK, and staying in London actually, let's talk about Petrol Girls. Their current lineup is Ren Aldridge on vocals, Joe York on guitar, Robin Gatt on vocals and bass, and Zoc Astpai on drums. My apologies for not knowing how to pronounce anything. Formed in 2012, they're the second longest running band on this list. They were named after the Petroliuses, pardon my French. The Petroliuses were associated with the Paris Commune, a progressive working class group that seized control of Paris briefly in 1871. After just 2 months, power was seized back. The Petroliuses rioted during that seizure and burned down a good deal of Paris. And those are the vibes you get with this band. From their name, to their music, to their actions, this is a political band. They're outspokenly feminist, with songs taking on issues like bodily autonomy, the right to abortion, and anti-capitalism. The music is in line lyrically with Riot Grrrl, but musically I hear more post-hardcore. Their sound is as intense and in-your-face as their lyrics, with quick tempo changes that, on my first listen, were a little difficult to keep up with sometimes. It wasn't immediately catchy because of its complexity, but on repeated listens, they've grown on me a lot to the point of making this list. Now let's head to the USA, New Jersey specifically. This is Gel, formed in 2018, originally a side project of the power violence band Sick Shit. Gel was a chance for them to explore a hardcore sound. The band is Sammy Kaiser on vocals, Anthony Webster and Maddie Nave on guitars, Matthew Bobko on bass, and Zach Miller on drums. The project definitely seems to have shifted from a side project into their day job, after they played an amazing set in a Sonic parking lot that was released on Hate 6 and then went viral. This video is linked in the description. The band's profile has gotten steadily bigger from there, with a reputation for being great live and with a series of strong releases. Describing their music as hardcore for the freaks, Gel is as inclusive as they are aggressive, with 2 non-binary members of the band, Kaiser and Nave. They want their shows to be an accepting space, particularly for the weird kids who don't feel like they fit in. Speaking to alternative press, guitarist Anthony Webster said, "We have people as young as 12, 13 at our shows. When I was young, I didn't want to go to shows because of how people would act. So we just want to embrace the weird kids." This connects to some of the band members' personal experiences of feeling excluded, both within the scene and in other contexts. Speaking about their experience with the hardcore subculture and how accepting it's been, Anthony says there's definitely some transphobia from the outside world that's seeped into hardcore, but broadly it's probably the best place to be in terms of musical subcultures. Any subculture is definitely safer than the rest of the world right now. With getting into Gel, I'd actually recommend starting with some of their live sets online. Like I mentioned, the Hate 6 one in the Sonic parking lot is good. They've also done some more recent Hate 6 videos that have been great as well. Then when you move on from that, a great place to start would be their debut album, Only Constant. This shows the broadest range of what they can do musically, going beyond just hardcore with some other experimentation. While their sound is probably the most classically and traditionally hardcore on this list, they have discussed influences as wide as Thursday, Swerve Driver, Obituary, and Sonic Youth, in addition to more predictable influences like Negative Approach. Since I'm not a musician myself, it's kind of hard to piece together how some of those bands have incorporated into their sound, and I mostly just hear one of the more energetic and fun hardcore bands around right now, which is certainly good enough for me to recommend them. And fairly nearby in Philadelphia, we have another US band that is one of the most experimental hardcore bands around. This is Soulglow, who formed in 2014. We have Pierce Jordan on vocals, Gigi Guerra on bass and vocals, and TJ Stevenson on drums. Of all the bands on this list, I'd call their style the most experimental, being sometimes described as post-hardcore, sometimes trap metal, and even industrial hip-hop. All of these fit at least some of the time, and sometimes all of them in the same track. I don't want to sound too reductive, but their music often confronts the trauma of the Black American experience and of living amid the aggression of racism and capitalism. Pierce Jordan's vocals are shouted, growled, or rapped, a furious torrent with lyrics packed as densely as they can be into each line and verse. He never uses 5 words when 20 would work just as well. The structures of their songs are often unpredictable, sometimes lacking clear verses and choruses, in favor of something that feels structurally a bit less rigid and more confrontational and challenging. There's no close analogy I can think of with other bands. I guess the closest I can come up with is Dillinger Escape Plan, but with some hybrid of Danny Brown and, like, MC Ride handling vocals, which doesn't help anybody. Just go listen to them and then you'll get it. When it comes to where to start, they have quite a few good projects to listen to, but my highest recommendation would be Diaspora Problems. This is their only album-length project, so it gives you a better sense of the range they can cover with their sound. It's also their most recent project, showing where they are now, and includes some of their best songs so far, like Driponomics, Jump or Get Jumped by the Future, Gold Chain Punk, Who Gon' Beat My Ass, and the excellent closer, Spiritual Level of Gang Shit, which starts out feeling a little like a more aggressive effort by The Roots, but the tempo keeps building and building into an eruption that finds its way to one of the strongest shouted choruses they've written yet, with some climactic horns accompanying the band as they fly at top speed. This being the final moment of the album makes me very excited about where the band's going next. Now, let's head to Japan, because there's a band from Kyoto you should know, Otoboke Beaver. This is a hardcore punk quartet, formed in 2009. The 2 founding members still in the band are, I'm sorry, I'm gonna butcher these names, Akurenrin on vocals and Yo-Yo Yoshi on guitar. Hiro-chan joined on bass in 2013, and the newest member of the current lineup is their drummer, Keihokis, who joined in 2018. She's literally one of my favorite drummers, with incredible speed, energy, and precision. They play a fast, catchy, but definitely aggressive style of punk, with a sense of humor and infectious gang vocals. They strike a balance between intensely fast punk and sudden tempo changes on the one hand, and incredibly catchy songwriting on the other. part of what draws me to the band is their sense of humor, which you can see in their performances, their song titles, even in their fashion choices, which don't exactly scream hardcore punk that's about to rip your face off. For most of the band's existence, they were still working their various day jobs, while trying to tour and keep the band going. Then, in early 2020, they reached a level of success to finally quit their jobs and start touring full-time. What could go wrong? 2 weeks into their tour, they had to cancel the rest of it because of COVID. So they spent the pandemic working on more music, doing live shows on Instagram, and if their second album, Super Champon, is any indication, figuring out how to play even faster. I saw them live in London earlier this year, and it was honestly one of the best punk shows I've ever seen. The energy level from that band is ridiculous. The energy level coming back from the crowd was great. I left the show feeling pretty exhausted, but I felt like it was really a memorable night, and I will definitely be going back to see them again if I get the chance. For exploring the band, I recommend their debut, Itacoma Hits, if you mostly listen to regular punk. If you prefer more hardcore, I'd recommend their second album, Super Champon. But both have a lot of the same characteristics: catchy hooks, startling rhythm changes, and an infectious, fun energy. And then for our final band, let's go down under. Amyl and the Sniffers formed in Balaclava, Australia in 2016. Amyl is Amy Taylor, and the rest of these dudes are the Sniffers. Bryce Wilson on drums, Declan Martins on guitar, Gus Romer on bass. What's up with the band name? Poppers. Poppers is what's up with the band name. They remind me in a lot of good ways of the Stooges or maybe the Wipers, like some of those early, more garage rock feeling punk. Amy reminds me of Iggy in a lot of good ways. She has this wonderfully snotty delivery and this I don't give a fuck energy, while her lyrics show the ways that she does actually give a fuck. They made 2 EPs, which were already starting to gain some attention. Enough attention that by the second one, I'd heard of them, and I tend to be a little behind the curve most of the time. Then their first album, Amyl and the Sniffers, was released in 2018. It was like their EPs, but bigger, badder, stronger riffs, better playing. And then 2022's Comfort to Me was a similar trick. It still feels very much the same sound, but with better musicianship and production. Here's a fun fact I really didn't see coming before I started researching this video. Comfort to Me was mastered by Bernie Grundman. This garage punk band was mastered by the same guy who mastered Thriller, Purple Rain, Asia, and The Chronic. I guess it's no coincidence it sounds pretty good. Their self-titled album has a scrappy garage feel to it, and I feel that's kind of lost in the polish of their second album. But as someone who doesn't really want to see a band just keep repeating themselves forever, I'm glad to see them trying out new things. And thanks to the quality of the songs, the more polished sound still does work. And I think Comfort to Me is actually still my favorite of their 2 albums. It's really hard to pick between these 2 though, so go with which sounds more appealing to you. And they do have a 3rd album coming soon, Cartoon Darkness. It'll be out this October, so right now is a good time to start checking them out. So there you have it, 6 current punk bands that I think any punk fan should give a chance. And if you're looking to get into punk, this would be a great place to start because these are all active bands you could get a chance to see live. Thanks for watching Eclecticism. This channel is a love letter to music for other lovers of music. If you are not tired of hearing my voice yet, please click the other video. It's popping up on the screen right about now. And if you want to hear me ramble about some more music, then click the subscribe button.